What it do? It's your boy, SportsRap in the building. And listen, I'm here, and you know what goes down each and every Monday, right? Let me get myself together here. So we know what goes down each and every Monday. It's your boy, SportsRap D. We are live, as always, right here on Facebook. SportsRap Podcast is the group page right there. Also, Instagram, at SportsRap CEO, is where you can get me there. So I know people are tuned in, and I know people are chiming in. So whenever you get ready, hook me up, let me know. I see one person already on Facebook. Let me know who you are. Like, y'all know the rules. I don't have to give y'all the rules every week, but y'all know the rules. You know what to do on Facebook, and you know exactly what you need to do on Instagram. So Instagram, like I said, Instagram. But I said I wasn't gonna give y'all the rules, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I need to be able to acknowledge people and give them their just due as they support and everything like that. So here we go. Facebook. When you put your comments in, I got two people now. When you put your comments in, make sure you let me know who you are and your comments. On Instagram, I'll see who you are, and I'll wave at you when they tell me to wave at you. So good morning, Ryan. Ryan J215 on Instagram. Again, I need to know who those two people are. On Facebook, just try to quick message and let me know who you are. But anyway, you know what we do. It's the Monday after the weekend. You got all your sports coverage. Always, okay? I always forget that you always here with me. Lowell Rich, thank you, good brother, for tuning in. My guy, Jay Blake 5, back again. Always, definitely appreciate the support, fellas. Definitely appreciate the support. Keep it coming, but I also need y'all to get over to that YouTube page. We got to get that YouTube page up. I got to get my subscribers up on that YouTube page. And y'all know I give y'all all that information as we proceed through the show. But it is the Monday after the weekend, and I got your sports coverage. So anything that you might have missed, you can catch it up right here with me every Monday morning. So before we get into the NCAA tournament, because we are now moving into the Final Four, and surprisingly, believe it or not, folks, there is no number one seeds left remaining in the tournament. None. I don't know if it's ever been done before, or I don't know the last time it's been done. I'm pretty sure it's been a long time since that has occurred. But there are no number one seeds in the men's NCAA tournament this year. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We're going to get right to some news and some updates, okay? Miami, speaking of number one seeds going out. My guy, good to hear from you, James Clark, basketball trainer extraordinaire, out there doing work with that G League squad out there. And I'm the short time that we've known each other, bro, we've created a bond and a friendship that is now extending cross country. So shout outs to you, my guy, for doing that Sacramento thing out there with the G League squad. I see you. I'm watching. I'm tuned in. For me, what's going on, bro? It's nothing, man. Just doing what I do. Trying to continue to expand, and that's it, man. We missed you this year too. I missed you this year because I usually try to get you on my NCAA preview show, but we're in the Final Four now. But, I know you tuned in, I know you watching, and I know you busy. But like I said, I know you watching, and I definitely appreciate everything, man, everything that you have done by coming in and sitting in with me, introducing me to a couple people, giving me some insight on plenty of things that I wanted to bring to the show. So definitely appreciate you, Mr. JC. All right? So, again, Miami halts Houston's dream of the season, halts Miami's dream season. Yes, sir. I'm staying locked in, bro. Just like I said, just trying to expand, doing what I do. So, I know it's a process, but I'm going to get there. At my pace, it's going to happen the way I want it to happen. Appreciate the support, as always. Miami halts Houston's dream season. So, again, Houston was another number one seed who got bumped out in the Sweet 16 by Miami. Shout outs to Miami, the Miami Hurricanes, Miami of Florida, Miami Hurricanes. A couple kids from the area One kid from Philly on that team. Then there's an Isaiah Wong. I forget the kid from Philly's name, but I know Isaiah Wong. I think he's from Jersey. But nonetheless, local kids, and shout outs to them. San Diego State is the team that took out the last remaining number 1 seed in Alabama, and also holding their amazing season. Again, there are no number 1 seeds in the Elite Eight, thus there will be none in the Final Four, which we are moving into coming up over the weekend. Memphis's Jamira Schutz has been charged with an assault in the women's NIT altercation. If you don't remember, I'm sure you've seen it. There was an altercation within the women's basketball, which is, for me, oddly unusual for it to get where it got to in this particular incident within the women's game. It's usually not as bad. It doesn't get that far, in my opinion, typically in the women's game. But there was a little fracas, if you will, and this young lady has now been charged with assault. It's unfortunate, but for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction, they say. And then whatever action that you make, there are consequences at some point. So, unfortunate, but yes, she is being charged with an assault charge. Phillies. It's unfortunate news for the Phil, and it's somewhat heartbreaking. It's definitely disappointing. It kind of lets some of that air out of the balloon as far as us looking forward to the season, which is coming up. Home opener is April 6th, next week. But the beginning of the season is right around the corner. It's like right there. And then we get the news over the weekend. Reese Hoskins. First we get the, initial. He's torn. He's taken off the field. Carted off the field with a serious knee injury. Then later we find that he has a torn ACL. Suggested surgery in his situation, per X-rays and MRIs, are reconstruction. No more Reese Hoskins. Probably won't have Reese Hoskins for the entire season. So we're going to have to fit somebody to fill in on that cold corner, and I think we'll be fine. But again, like I said, the disappointing facts in that are that this injury happened, non-contact injury. It happened so close to the beginning of the season. And then we were already beginning the season without Bryce Harper, who's recovering from Tommy John surgery. So early in the season, the Phillies will have some catching up to do. But I think with the additions that were made in the offseason this year, I think they'll maintain until Bryce gets back. And then they'll just have to carry along. I think they have some pretty good replacements for that cold corner for Reese Hoskins. So we'll see what happens. But I think they have enough. They've done enough to build upon what they did last year. And for the team that's there until Bryce gets there, can hold it down until he gets in and is able to play. The Lakers got LeBron back yesterday after missing about 13 games. Luka Doncic is facing a 1-game suspension. He has reached 16 technical fouls called against him in the NBA this season. Braves right-handed pitcher Cal Wright is set to start the season on the injured list. The Blazers are reportedly thinking of shutting down Damian Lillard despite their playoff contention. It's a calf injury that's been bothering him pretty much all season. And you can look at it in a couple of ways. I, for one, look at it in a way of a business, the Blazers, looking after their investment, Dame Lillard, and then also looking at the health and well-being of their investment. So basically, like we tell y'all a lot on this show, they're going to protect the house. So I think that's what they want to do. They want to protect the house, even though they are in somewhat contention. Dame is the franchise there. So, again, I think they're going to want to protect the house. And the Eagles' tush push will not be outlawed in 2023. So, again, if you don't know anything about that, folks, again, all of the pushing and shoving that was done during the season, a lot with the Eagles, which is became almost a staple play for them when they did the quarterback sneak on short yardage plays. They would push Jalen Hurts, and then they were talking about trying to get that outlawed. but they did not. I just see somebody on Facebook message typed in just 100, the 100 emoji. Please let me know who you are. I know Lowell Rich is tuned in. I don't know if that's my cousin Brad or whoever, but whoever just typed in that 100 emoji on Facebook, please let me know. And again, my guys, on Instagram, I'm here. James Clark J 22 underscore is here. Jay Blake is here. Ron J 215 is here. So come on, y'all, get in here and get into this dialogue with me on this great Monday morning. It's gonna be nice today too. So y'all need to get out and enjoy it. And start here with me, enjoying some good sports talk. So we move into some scores from yesterday before we get into our first segment, which is going to be some NCAA talk. So we got the NBA scores. We're going to start there today. The Mavs fall to the Hornets 110-104. The Bulls get by the Lakers 118-108. The Grizzlies get by the Hawks 123-119. The Spurs fall to the Celtics. Good God. 137-93. Yo, when we talk Sixers, man, I'm going to have some stuff to say, but we are definitely going to talk Sixers, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But that score there, wow, 137-93. Good God. Did the Spurs even show up? Anyway, Cavs beat the Rockets 108-91. The Nets fall to the Magic 119-106. The Wizards fall to the Raptors 114-104. The Thunder just get by the Blazers by a few points, 118-112. And in a close one, the Warriors fall to the T-Wolves, 99-96. In Major League Baseball, spring baseball, as we approach opening week, the Cardinals get bombed by the Astros, 24-1. The Red Sox fall to the Twins, 7-2. Phillies get beat by the Orioles, 4-2. In a close one, the Rays fall to the Tigers 11-10. The Yankees get by the Blue Jays 6-2. The Braves over the Pirates 8-1. The Nationals Marlins play to a tie on deuces 2 apiece. The Rockies get by the White Sox 4-2. The Reds fall to the Guardians 3-2. The Royals get blanked by the Cubs 5-zip. The Giants get up on the A's 9-5. In another tie, the Diamondbacks and the Brewers play to a 4-4 tie. One more tie coming up. The Marlins and the Mets play to a 3-3 tie. And finally, in another tie, the Mariners and the Padres 5-5 go even there. Reds 7, Rockies 5. And then the night game closing out, the Dodgers blank the Angels 3-zip. In the NHL yesterday, the Avalanche beat the Coyotes 4-3 in the shootout. Also, same score in another shootout. The Bruins get by the Hurricanes 4-3. The Canucks get by the Blackhawks 4-2. Maple Leafs 3-2 over the Predators. And the Kings beat the Blues in LA 7-6. In NCAA tournament, men's, Creighton falls to San Diego State 57-56 in a questionable call, but a correct call, if you will. And we can talk a little bit about that if anybody wants to chime in. We'll talk about that when I get to the NCAA stuff, really. Miami 88, Texas 81. In the women's, moving on to the Final Four, LSU gets by Miami 54-42, and Iowa advances, beating Louisville 97-83. So there you have it, folks. And again, those are your scores for Monday, March 27th, 2023. Moving right along, folks, we just going to stay right with it. And we're going to talk some of this NCAA stuff here real quick. Again, one team you can arguably say still has their slipper on, Florida Atlantic. And you could probably even say the other team that still has a slipper on, San Diego State. And ironically, they play each other. And then we got Miami and UConn in the Final Four. So I'm a little surprised at UConn in their run. I knew that they were good, but it's one of those things where they are just sending. Let's see, crap, you put that work in the deserve all the rewards that become its support. Okay, my guy, Mitch. Thanks for tuning in, Mitch, Airy Ave, my guy. Listen, Mitch, we got to talk, man. I got your number in my phone. Mitch, listen, I'm gonna reach out to you this week, one day, and we gonna talk about getting y'all up here because I definitely need to get y'all up here and talk about the Aztecs. And again, I need to get y'all up here and talk about the Aztecs because you guys, I remember the very beginning and the success that you have had throughout with the tutelage, the guidance that you have done for these young men in this city. Definitely got to get y'all up here and talk to y'all about that, man. Even if it's just you, Mitch, we can coordinate something. But definitely, I'm going to reach out to you this week. My guy James Murphy over here on Instagram, and thank you for tuning in, Murph. I was just thinking about you too, so I'm gonna try and pull you in. All right, we're gonna see what happens. I had Richard a couple weeks ago. We're gonna try and see what happens. But again, two teams that still have a slipper on, I think. San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, Miami, and UConn. Again, where I was at was I was a little bit surprised at the play of UConn because I think that they've come at Murph. I can't see your face. I believe that they are doing what you expect from a lot of teams. You expect teams to get hot, and they're getting right. There he is, my guy, James Murphy. What it do, good brother?
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
I'm glad to be seen.
Absolutely. So, I'm just shooting the you-know-what, as I do, every Monday morning. I usually have Rich chimed in with me, but I'm sure he's probably busy. I've talked to him several times, so he might be busy or something, but I'm sure if he hears me or whatever, he'll chime in. If not, he'll hit me up later after the show or whatever. But right now, I'm really just talking about the NCAA tournament, which is the first part of the show today. And I was giving my spiel on the UConn Huskies. Like I was saying, I was a little surprised at how far they advanced. And not to say that they weren't good. Like I said, doing what I do, I follow. So I knew that they were good. But them reaching the Final Four, especially in the bracket that they were in, when you had to go up against the likes of Kansas, possibly Arkansas. They beat Arkansas, as a matter of fact, but you also had Gonzaga, and then they just beat Gonzaga. Like, even in this bracket, you look at the St. Mary's team, who always seems to be somewhere in the mix, no matter what. But looking at this bracket and this UConn team, I'm a little, like I said, surprised that they came out of this bracket. You got anything?
This was one of those years where I thought it was a Michigan State or Louisville year. You know how they win the tournament in those weird years? Because there was no clear favorite.
No. And then you had major teams that weren't in it at all.
I could see it happening with UConn. Actually, I think I'm going to just go ahead and go for Florida Atlantic.
Right. And listen, that's not a bad bet. If you have watched them throughout the tournament, that is not a bad bet. And you say, we typically say a team like Florida Atlantic is one of those teams that we would call a Cinderella team. Like I mentioned earlier, I think they still have the slipper on. But when you watch them play, you kind of get the hint of, maybe we should take this Cinderella slipper off. Maybe they're supposed to be here. And it gives me, I told some people the other day, this Florida Atlantic team gives me all the remembrance of a few years back, that Florida Gulf Coast team. And the Florida Gulf Coast team were even lower. They were like a 15 or 16 seed. And they made it to like the Sweet 16. I think they made it to the Elite 8 as well. But
I was thinking about that Illinois-Chicago team a few years back.
Another one.
Went through.
Yep, another one.
Do you think this transfer portal and NIL are going to help teams like Florida Atlantic?
I think the NIL bill.
Everybody's on TV.
Yeah, I think.
Growing up, it was if you were on TV.
Right, you were. Yeah, I think the NIL bill is definitely going to help the individual athletes, But I also think at certain schools, and Florida Atlantic could be one who could benefit from it this way, where they could get an athlete coming out of this tournament who could emerge with an NIL bill, and because the school is a little bit smaller, D1, it could help the school as well. Real quick, let's see. My guy Jay Blake, he says UConn is a well-balanced team. They started the year good, but had a rough spot in the middle of the year. Now they playing well again. Yeah, and thanks for that chime in, Jay. And also, like we said, their schedule was hectic, but people sometimes forget that for a lot of teams, they can make up headway if their conference has a conference tournament. And I think that's what supported them and helped push them to where they are now. Like my guys, my Carolina, I'm a Carolina fan, diehard. But people ask me, yeah, and I know it's the Duke thing. People ask me about going in, how did I feel about them not making the tournament? And I said, looking at the season, I knew it was going to be rough, even though we returned 5 starters. But the way that they were playing at the beginning of the season, I knew it was going to be rough. As they got towards the end of the season, they had a couple games where it made me start to think, all right, if they do well in the tournament, we might can sneak in somewhere in the middle, 8, 9, somewhere maybe, or 12, 13, somewhere, if we do well in the tournament. Didn't happen. But I knew it could go either way, so I wasn't really upset. I was a little disappointed because I was always used to seeing my guys somewhere in it, especially after the run we made last year to the final game when people counted us out going in. But it is what it is. Now, the transfer portal, I think it can be good and it can be bad. On the good side, I think it can be good because there will be some schools who may lose some players as far as to the draft that could get a transfer and put them right back where they were before these players went into the draft. In other instances, it could take a team like Florida Atlantic and boost them to even better, where they would be higher than a number 9 seed possibly next year going in. They could get into that top 5 somewhere around there. The bad thing I see with the portal is teams can lose a lot of players, let alone a lot of key players, very quickly. I hate to say this way, but this is like the perfect example since I'm talking about it, and it's right on the top of my head. You look at the Temple Owls basketball situation. Apparently they got rid of Aaron McKee. Okay, so he's no longer the coach there, which I don't understand. I don't get it. Yeah, Aaron and Monte was an assistant, so I don't know what's going to happen there. But we'll see. But when you look at that roster now, they have about 7 players that have entered the portal. So what remains on that Temple team as of right now, without a coach, just basically looking at that basketball team, nobody remaining on that team averaged 5 points. So,
really?
Yes. So nobody that's left, nobody that's left on that team averaged 5 points a game. So you see how it can manage. It's like that scale. It's going to either lift you up or it's going to bring you down. Very few instances it'll put you fair to middling. But I think like that was just like the perfect example. How I said for Florida Atlantic, it can make them better than what they are now. It could put teams back where they were when they lose seniors or guys to the draft. It could make teams better than what they were from other teams, transfer portals. And then, like we said, it could also do a major drop like what it's done to Temple. Like, Temple basketball right now is in a state where it seems like confusion, dysfunction.
Is Aaron out as head
I think he
coach?
is out. I think he's out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's out as coach. Yeah. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what it is, but what I'm saying is seeing what's going on, reading and hearing about what's going on right now, you can very easily create some dialogue and say there's some dysfunction there in those offices. Something else could be going on or whatever. It's just very easy. The way this all hit, it's just very easy that you can find some type of dialogue to go in any one of those angles. Yeah, let me see. NCAA Elite 8 starters, 19 transfer players, 16 seniors, and 1 true freshman. This might be the new norm for college basketball. That was Jay on Instagram. Yeah, I mean, like I said, and it's a lot easier now for players, for these athletes, than it was previously. You know, there was a longer process previously with the transfer thing.
Right.
Sometimes you might, depending on where you went, transferred, you may have to sit out a year and do whatever. With this transfer portal, now, in a sense, if I'm not incorrect, I think you can almost play immediately.
Yeah.
And again, this transfer portal for the athletes, I think it's a double benefit for them, because in a small way or in some ways, it can get them to a school where they can play more, where they might not have played a lot at the school that they're currently at. It could also increase their chances of getting an NIL deal, depending on what school they transfer from and to. So for the athletes, it's arguably you can arguably talk about it and say it's a win-win for the individual athletes. But you can still also go back in and pick where it's difficult, where it could be some bad things. You can go to a situation that's ends up not being what you expected it to be. And now you're kind of stuck for a minute.
Right.
You could transfer from one school and go to another school and possibly lose some contention or some interest as far as getting an NIL bill too. So, of course, there's both sides in each situation, but I think more so as far as just the individual athlete, the NIL and the transfer portal will help them, I think, more so than it would hurt them. That's just what I believe.
Okay.
You know, and like Jay said, it's looking like it could possibly be the norm for college basketball. And you know how those things go. Kids get recruited, and then the coach leaves. Oh, I'm not going there anymore. I'm going to go where that coach is going. So,
right, yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things. I just feel like it could become the norm. Like I said, it could become beneficial for the athletes, individual athletes. For some schools, situations, it could become beneficial. But overall, as far as NCAA entirely, it could get a little funky. And the reason I say that is because when you look at the situations, you have these NIL deals coming. And they've already trickled into some HBCUs as far as guys in football and a couple basketball teams. So it's already trickled. Yeah, it's already trickled down. Okay?
Good.
Now, one of the things I would hate to see, I don't want to see, but anybody that follows this thing like I do, or in general, knows that it could be a twinkle of a possibility where the NCAA will try to take control of it and try to restrict certain things, try and put their thumbprint on it and make it theirs and not have it do what it was meant to do. I would hate to see that. But I'm a little scared because I agree with Jay, and I think it could become the norm. And I also know what I know. And we've seen it before. We've seen it several times where things go a certain way, and then it's like, okay, now this league is going to step in and we're going to take control of this. Just like they did with the when they did the Prop 48 initially. Okay?
Right.
You can come, but you got to have this grade level and this SAT score. And then they dropped that.
Right.
And then they said, all right, you can go to college and whatever. You can go, and then you can leave as a freshman or whatever. I'm speaking just basketball more so, just for conversation. And then they got to the point where, okay, people found the loophole where players started going overseas after high school. When they finally said you had to be a year in college. Then they said you have to be a year removed from high school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What they did there was they put kind of a restriction on it, a regulation on it, and then people found a loophole. They said, all right, well, all I have to do is be removed 1 year from high school. I don't have to take this 1 year going to Memphis or 1 year going to UCLA. I can go play with pros and be more prepared than some of the other guys coming out and have an advantage over some of those guys.
With the G League?
Yeah, they have a G League Ignite team where they get guys that come in. They've even started another league that I talked about a while back. But the G League now, again, expanding, they have now these two-way contracts where these guys split time between the G League and the NBA. Perfect example for the Sixers, Jaden Springer, Mac McClung, ironically, are both on two-way contracts. So if you watch the games, when you watch the games, the rest of the season down the line, every now and then when they show the bench, just take a peek at the bench. I haven't seen McClung up as much yet, but I've seen Jaden Springer as recently as last week on the bench. He actually played last week for the Sixers in that game where they scored the 141. I forget who it was they beat, but that game when they were blowing somebody out, he got in late in that game. But yeah, they have those two-way contracts now where, like I said, they're allowed to stay up. They can play a certain amount of games, suit up a certain amount of games in the NBA, and then a certain amount of games, or the remainder games are in the G League. And
so it's turned to baseball. It looked to baseball to figure out how to make this situation better, because that's the same way with the minor leagues. You can bring players up a certain amount of times before you have to either say,
you got to stack your step.
You're on the major league team, or we got to trade you.
Right. Yeah. I think baseball is one of the toughest, though, as far as that situation. Because, like you just said, you can bring these guys up as many times as you want. And then before you have to make a solid decision.
Right.
As far as like with the basketball thing, they put a limit on the number of games that they can play. So as far as like you said, with the baseball, you can call guys up if you got injuries. If you need just a push, you know this guy can push. You can call this guy up for a week or so and see how he'll fit next week when you decide you want to keep him. For the NBA, it's like, I got a couple injuries. I got these guys. We call these guys up. But then you call these guys up, and they're just like filling roster spots most of the time. If it's not a blowout, they're just filling the roster spot. They're just up here.
They're just sitting on the bench.
They're just up here. They say because you have like an NBA, you have to have a minimum of 12 guys dressed every night. So when you have injuries and things of that nature, you call these guys up. They fill up the roster spots, and you have the legit rosters. And then like you said, unless it's a game like the Sixers game the other night, blowout, they normally don't play. But again, like I said, I feel like baseball again is the hardest because the team has to make that decision. It's not an overshadowing of executive offices in Major League Baseball so much. It's that team. As far as, like we said, with the NBA, it's already put in there. Look, it's a two-way contract. He going to get some time there. He going to get some time here. In the NBA, you better be wise in how you use his time up here. Because if you use it too fast and he can't come back, then what are you going to do?
That's true.
It's funny, and it's funny. And then you look at, like, with the baseball thing, baseball players are usually a lot more healthier. And people may say, well, why you say they're healthier than... Because there's a lot more running in the other sports, football, basketball. Not that there's no running in baseball, but it's a longer season. And ironically, it's the longest season that doesn't cross over years. A lot of people didn't know that, but it's the longest season that doesn't cross over years. And it's 162 games. And you think like, wait, 162 games, they start in April, and they don't end in... Yeah, well, like, you got to take into consideration It's different than the other sports. Football, you can only play once a week because of the violent nature. Basketball, you can play 2-3 times a week, but there's also travel, and you have to have days off because of the constant jumping and running and all of that kind of jazz.
Right.
In baseball, you got 3-game series. So I can have a 3-game series tonight. We'll have a day off, and then we'll have a 4-game series. And then we'll have 2 games off, and we go right back into another 3-game, and then another night or 2 off, and then another 4-game or whatever. So that's how those games get accumulated. But you have the way the games are structured, I think helps keep the players healthy, because you can have instances where you have long innings. And with basketball, it's the up and down. You might have timeouts here and there. And then now this new thing that they got where they call it load management, where guys rest in games. Usually doesn't happen too much in baseball. There's no load management in baseball or any of that jazz. Guys are playing. If they can play, they're playing. And this is why I like baseball so much, because guys play when they're playing. When they're able to play, they play. Reminds me of the old basketball that I used to love. You had to be bleeding or your bones had to be protruding through your skin, like a compound fracture almost, for you to not play. All right? Now you got these guys that are in this load management thing and don't play, and then it stretches. And the odd thing is, and a lot of people don't understand from the outside looking in and don't really understand the business side. In that situation, the teams have to report some type of injury if a player's going to be out. They understand it's load management, but they can't just write it out and say, oh, Kawhi Leonard, load management. Just it. They have to put something in there. Back tightness, calf tightness, foot something. They got to put something in there because it has to be resemble a legit injury for him to load management, or they will just go and they'll say rest, which I think is asinine, because when you're resting for what? You get rest throughout the game.
Right.
You get time out. You don't play the entire 48 minutes. You get rest, and then you have practices where people don't seem to understand or people don't know, but a lot of times it's like some players don't practice like everybody practices. Okay? It's just, like, I've been to practices and seen, like, okay, this dude is, oh, he ain't practicing today? Oh, no, we just resting him because we got a West Coast trip coming up, about 4 or 5 games. So we're going to limit his practice and let him, rest now. So they get rest. So I don't get the load management. I think it's kind of, it's kind of put a damper for me on the NBA. But again, like a friend of mine told me, you got to remember also the NBA is entertainment, so they want to keep that entertainment factor. But in a small way,
325
the load management,
so
right?
Don't give me that
right. The load man, and I was just getting ready to say, the load management takes away from. If you want to pose it as entertainment, and we all know it's mostly entertainment, the load management now takes away from the entertainment. It's just like Kobe said one time, and then someone as young as Anthony Edwards said it a couple weeks ago when they brought up this thing about the load management thing. He said, listen, you've got people that work 9-to-5 jobs that spent their hard-earned money to come and see you play. Why would you not play? Kobe said the same thing. He said one time it was Kobe, his wife asked him, he was injured, banged up, and he was still going to play. And he said the same thing. His wife asked him, well, why are you going to go play? Like, I see you walking around the house, you're hurting, whatever. He said the same thing. He said, there could be somebody in that stadium tonight that spent a lot of money, and this might be the only time they ever get to see me play. How can I let them down and not play? Which is one of the reasons I love Kobe as a human, as a person. Basketball player too, but as a person, it was different. And then you look full circle, and somebody young as Anthony Edwards said pretty much the same thing a couple weeks ago about the load management things they do. Like, why are you not playing? You got people that come to see you. You should be playing. So that load management thing, for me, it's crazy. I don't get it. I don't really like it. And, it is what it is.
Well, my brother, listen, I got to get on to this appointment. You send my
All
love
right.
to everybody.
Yes, sir.
And I'll holler at you next week.
All right. I'll be right here. Thanks for chiming in. Appreciate you. Yeah, so we're going to move on, folks. Where do I want to go next? I think I'm going to talk some Sixers because it's a lot of talk for the Sixers right now. A lot of things that are going on with the Sixers right now. A lot of things that can be said, can be had. The Sixers are right now currently in third place in the East. And this is, let's see. Oh, nope, don't want to do that. All right, there we go. So, Sixers are currently third right now in the Eastern Conference. As of last night, things has changed, updated. Initially, when I did my notes, the Sixers would have been playing the 6-seeded Nets. Miami Heat has supplanted them at that 6 seed, so the Nets have fallen into the play-in tournament. Listen, the Sixers, man, have the toughest schedule remaining. Going into the night's game, including tonight's game, there are 8 games left in the season. It's a 4-4 split, home and away. But we got some games on this 8 stretch that are going to be brutal, that could be crucial to who our opponent is in the playoffs and where we stay as far as the seedings. So, kicking off this trip, these last 8 games tonight, finishing up the road trip for a short, finishing up this road trip for a brief stint. We go into Denver and face off against the Denver Nuggets. Talk a little bit more about this game, which could be a pivotal game for Joel Embiid. Anyway, then we've got the Mavericks at home, the Raptors at home. Then we go on the road to face the Bucks. Come back home for the Celtics, followed by the Heat. Then we close out the season on the road with the Hawks and the Nets. So, all teams that we could possibly see in the playoffs at some point. And games that would be needed, definitely need to try and get a win against the Celtics. They've owned us this year, and we haven't beaten them at all. What's good, Chant? That must be my guy, Mighty. What's good, good brother? Good morning to you. I think we can get the Heat if we got to get Harden back healthy. Hawks and the Nets, I'm not really worried about. The biggest games for me, like I said, would be the Heat, the Celtics, the Bucks, and then this Nuggets game. So while we're here, I said to mention this Nuggets game. This game is arguably a pivotal game for Joel Embiid. This game could supplant him into the MVP award for this year. We all know what happened on national TV when Denver came here earlier. He gave Jokic 47, game-winner shot with Jokic guarding him in his face. Joel Embiid has been on a tear the last month, being extremely dominant in every night that he's played. I think if he has a good showing tonight, if the Sixers win this game tonight, that this could be the game that everyone else finally realizes that Joel Embiid should be the MVP of the league. In my opinion, like I said, the past month or so, he's been playing like the MVP. And we all know the MVP is a regular season award. Definitely we get that. But what he's been doing, again, we're just going to go this past month. What he's been doing in this past month, win or lose, he has been showing MVP type of play. No question in my mind that I feel like he should be the MVP. And again, like I said, I think this game will be a pivotal game for him to possibly supplant him and push him right to the top of it, because people have started to see things, and people have started to change and see that and speak on it and mention that right now he's currently at the top of the list. It seems like with the other players in contention, you look at Giannis, and teams have figured out ways to manage Giannis. I'm not going to say slow him down. People manage Giannis. The Denver Nuggets side with Jokic, he does his thing, very near to averaging a triple-double for the season. But the Nuggets are one of those teams where they just don't seem to get better or perform better in the playoffs. So it's a little sketchy there. With the Sixers, you look at Joel Embiid, and it's tough to scheme for him because it's almost like he's almost unstoppable, if you will. It's very tough to game plan for him. And with the other guys filling in now, and then once we get Harden back, it's tough. We've seen how tough it can be to beat this team. We've seen how tough this team can be when they're healthy. So that's my thing. That's what we need to get going into the playoffs. And people are like, oh, well, Harden's hurt now. Okay, if this rest with this injury now has to come now where he can play heavy minutes in the playoffs where we'll need him, I'm okay with it right now. Okay? Because I don't think the Sixers will fall to the 4 spot. If they do, I still feel like they can get out of that first round. So it's a good thing. And speaking of the NBA conversation, the NBA dialogue, I saw an article. I'm going to grab it right now and kind of talk about it a little bit. And it's an article I saw, and it's titled "Why Nikola Jokic winning the 3rd MVP in a row would be bad for basketball." The article goes into different sports, other players who won multiple MVPs and all of these other types of things and this other nature. And then it brings up, and this is something that I wanted to bring up to you as well. So anybody that's tuned in, you can definitely chime in on this piece, if you will. When a few weeks back, there was some dialogue on ESPN about the MVP race. And there was some dialogue between Kendrick Perkins and J.J. Redick. Kendrick Perkins went on to elaborate and say that basically most of the voters for the MVP were old Caucasian men. I don't think he said anything wrong. I think that is arguably a very true statement. I don't know how or why J.J. Redick misinterpreted it so badly that it's almost got into a heated argument. It was somewhat heated on air. But, J.J. Redick was actually pretty good until that point. Again, I don't feel that Kendrick Perkins said anything wrong. I think it was a true statement. And it's like that in just about every major sport. There aren't enough of us, African Americans or people of color, in those rooms that end up making those heavy decisions. So again, I think Perkins was right. I think J.J. Redick was wrong in going at Perkins the way that he did upon his misinterpretation of what Perkins said. I feel like J.J. Redick read what he wanted to read into what Perkins said into it, which caused his anger, which caused his point of stance. But when you look at that situation, somebody help me make it make sense. Where did Kendrick Perkins say anything wrong? And it's not a point about racism. It's something that I think should have been known by both parties involved. Kendrick Perkins, media member now, but also former player. So he's been in those rooms or been near those rooms, been around some of those people. J.J. Redick, former player, possibly been in some of those rooms, possibly been around some of those participants. So they should know. He should know. He should have understood, or he should have taken a moment to possibly understand where Perkins was going with what he said, and not just take what he said literally just on face value of just the words alone. Because there's some underlying facts in there. And again, like I said, what Kendrick Perkins said, I don't believe was false. But it is what it is. And Nikola Jokic winning a third MVP, again, I agree, would be bad for the league. It would show resemblance of some favoritism. It would push a lot of narratives as far as his fans in Philly and Sixers and a lot of people that feel like the NBA and still hates the process. Could have an effect there as well. So we'll see. I am right now going to take a quick break. When I come back, I may pick up some more Sixers stuff. I definitely may talk some Eagle stuff on the other side as well. But again, thanks to everybody that tuned in this morning. I hope you guys come back on the other side. My guy, James Murphy, who chimed in, classmate, good friend of mine. I'm glad he can get a minute to chime in today and we talk some sports and talk some stuff. So, folks, listen. It's your boy, SportsRap D. You are tuned in to SportsRap right here on Heat 100 Radio, 11:47 a.m. I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, we're going to get into some more dialogue. Folks, stay tuned. I'll see y'all in just a few seconds. Be right back on y'all. Again, welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Rap Podcast right here on Heat 100 Radio, heat100radio.com. You can also get us on TuneIn. You can search Heat 100 Radio. And like I said, you can get me on Instagram at SportsRapCEO. Hey, cousin, good morning. Good morning. Jay Blake, thanks for coming back. You can also get me on Facebook, the group page there, Sports Rap Podcast, LLC. We are live simultaneously there as well. So we left off and we were talking about the possibility of Joel Embiid getting the MVP. Talk about this game tonight versus the Denver Nuggets possibly being a pivotal game in making or in assisting the powers that be in making that vote and allowing him to be named the MVP for this season. Like I said, I see, okay, cousin, be safe, I love you. I see where this could possibly go, but I just also think with the most recent support, the most recent homage that he's been getting from around the league as far as players and coaches, so that's his peers and the coaches that have to coach against him, have been put on notice and have made note on more than one occasion how they feel and what they feel about this young man and how he's been playing. And like I said, I'm just stretching maybe a little bit here, playing over the past month or so. Also, I mentioned that where the article that I mentioned talked about how it would be a little crazy, a little odd for Jokic to win. And, you know, I said some things, and I've said some things in conversations with talking to people where the 2 years that Joker has won the MVP, the team hasn't gotten out of the first round of the playoffs. Usually that's like the staple that what people say about the Sixers. They can't get out of the second round. But the Sixers get out of the first round. And what I'm saying is the guy that you voted as the MVP 2 years in a row didn't get out of the first round. Okay, the Sixers get out of the first round. They do that. Their problem is they can't get out the second round. So the comparison there is somewhat biased, if you will, on both sides. This is a conversation comparing and talking about these two players that can be had for many years. The one thing that I have seen in the most recent weeks and month with Joel Embiid, which I think kind of sets him apart. A lot of his performances have been all-time performances. Like performances that put him in the conversation with the greats that we all know about. It's just my opinion. This is what I think, is what I've seen, what I think these last couple weeks or so, and month or so, has put him in that conversation. And I think that's very well deserving of the MVP. But we'll see what happens. Again, like I said, tonight's game could be a very pivotal game for the MVP race. Could also be a good game for the Sixers as well. A bounce back game. They lost 2 in a row. We need to get a bounce back before we come back home. Like I said, we got 8 games left. What did I do with my papers here? 8 games left. I don't remember where, but it's a split. 4 games away, 4 games at home. Absolutely, Jay. I one of those years they got swept in that first round, like 4-0. Then one was a gentleman's sweep or something somewhere, whatever. But, like, you talk about the Sixers and Joel Embiid not getting out of the second round. At least the guy, the Joker, didn't get out of the first round. And I understand where they'll go and say, oh, well, the MVP is a regular season award. Okay, but if you're an MVP and you get all this praise for carrying your team, and you mean this much to your team here, and you mean this much to this team this night, when it really counts in the playoffs is where we need to see it. We see it from Embiid. We've seen it last year. The heroism from Embiid. This is my team. This is my city. I'm playing with my guys. After the fractured face and everything in Toronto, he still came back and played in the Miami series. And arguably, to this day, I continue to say, and I stand behind this, if Joel Embiid does not miss those 2 games in that Miami Heat series, we win that series and move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm just calling it like I see it. My thoughts, my opinions only. This is how I feel about that situation. So, for the Sixers right now, I think it might be ideal for them to stay in that 3rd seed. In all honesty, when it boils down to it, the 2 teams above us, for whatever reason this year, Boston just has our number. So me going in, I like our chances against Milwaukee more than I do against Boston. I mean, hell, they might surprise me at some point. But right now, going in, looking in from the outside, looking in where we are right now, I like my chances. I like our chances against Milwaukee more so than I do against Boston. It's just how I see it. It's just how I feel right now. But I think, like I said, the thing with the Harden injury, and people are all like somewhat in the tizzy about the injury. He's missed a few games here and there, whatever. Okay, like I was saying, the stretch that he was on, the stretch that the Sixers were on as a unit, the 2-man team, him and Joel Embiid, the stretch that they were on, I loved what I was seeing, but I kept reiterating to people, I like it now, but I want to love it. So that means I need to see it in April and May and June and in the playoffs. This is where I need to see it. It's great to see it now, because now you can get an understanding of, okay, this is something the team's going to have to deal with. But it's got to continue. It can't have a drop-off. It's got to continue in the playoffs. Also, playoffs coming, things are going to get tighter. In these last 8 games, in my opinion, Doc Rivers, the head coach, also has to figure out that big man rotation behind Joel Embiid. Because you can't go into the playoffs with as much uncertainty as there is right now. And if you don't see it, I don't know what you're looking at. So, we will get to that, when we see it. This is Randy Seedy, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate the support. So, again, with the Sixers thing, like I said, Joel Embiid is doing this thing. You know what you have in DeAnthony Melton. You know what you have in Maxey. The other problem, I think, is we don't have enough guards. There's a drop-off when you have to play Shake Milton. I don't know what the issue is or whatever, but I go back to even at one point where Brett Brown was here when he tried to make Shake the starting point guard. And in my opinion, still to this day, I said it back then and I say it again. In my opinion, right now, Shake Milton is not a starting point guard in the NBA. I don't honestly feel like he's a legit first option for backup point guard right now. I think he can play in the NBA, but I think he's more so that wing combo guard. Like, I don't think you can actually say, I don't think he shoots well enough for you to call him a shooting guard. And I don't think he's capable enough at running the team the way a point guard should run a team as of yet. So there's some confusion there, and there will be some need in the offseason to look at some more guards, possibly get some other guards in here and see what happens with that. But again, like I said, the Sixers, I mean, it is what it is, you know. We just got to hope for the best, you know. Right now, we sit 4.5 games out of first place. Again, we're in the 3 seed. We have to stay the tide, okay? We have to ride the wave. We got to stay in that top 3. If we fall out of that top 3, then things could get a little sketchy. But I think we'll be okay. As far as first round, I think we'll be okay. So the thing is the second round, who we get in the second round. We need home court advantage. Although we've been pretty solid on the road this year, but it's nothing like home court advantages. You've never been to a playoff game in the Wells Fargo Center with this current situation within like the past 2, 3, 4 years. You got to get in there. Yeah, Jay, you said you agree with the Sixers. They don't really have a backup PG. I love how Maxey's playing great right now. And you can arguably say Maxey could be the point guard. But again, like you said, the facilitating that James Harden does, the other guards that we have don't do that. So again, yeah, we don't have a backup point guard really at all. So again, like I said, I look forward to tonight's game, and I'm going to watch that battle. There were a lot of times in the previous game when they went on the national televised game when Nuggets were here, where Joel Embiid just looked like he was running circles around Joker. And again, like I said, for me, the advantage I give to Embiid is the defensive side of the ball. Joel Embiid is a much better defender overall than Joker is. But again, like I said, I don't have a vote for the MVP. I can only give you my opinions and my vote. We'll see what happens when the voting is all said and done. Moving on to a little bit of football news. We've talked several weeks about the Eagles and what the Eagles have done in the offseason. I've also mentioned to you how I felt about Howie Roseman and the things that he's done in the past couple years as far as maneuvering and bringing guys in and all of that kind of jazz. So, most recently in the Eagles free agency updates, Lane Johnson has gotten a contract extension, and the Eagles signed for former Steelers safety Terrell Edmonds. Also, right before that, he had Nicholas Morrow, linebacker from the Bears, Justin Evans, a safety from the Bucks, and Greedy Williams, a cornerback from the Browns. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts on what has been done by the Eagles so far this offseason and Howie Roseman in that front office? For me, I think there have been some good things done. You know, we could have had, some really good things done. But people have to remember, going into this offseason, we were somewhat strapped as far as salary cap restraints. I think, I think Howie did some things in bringing some guys back and restructuring, where the last I checked, we were about $13 million with cap space. So we've got a little bit of things we can do. And then the draft is still coming up. So, there's also things that could be had in the draft. There could be trades, and I'm going to talk about one trade that I saw in the draft, and we'll talk about a couple of mock drafts that I saw as well. But I think the Eagles did some good things. You brought some guys back that you felt like you needed to bring back. A couple of them could have arguably have been fan favorites, as well. But these are core guys that you've had that you can trust in that locker room to bring these new additions, bring them in, and bring them into the culture, incorporate them into the culture. So you got these guys in the locker room. So I think that's a good thing there. Also, I think the Eagles have put themselves in a position where they can do some things in the draft. But looking back, after the season that we had, after the Super Bowl, I knew that some things were going to change. And it always happens. People like it. I don't understand why people were somewhat surprised with so many names that left. Some of these guys that came in and played this year were like 1-year contract, 1-year deals anyway. But you knew with the success of the team that there were going to be some players that were going to be removed. And when you look up and you got 19 free agents, it's very, very hard to keep all 19 unless you're like bottom of the barrel, you're like super. But that wasn't the case for the Eagles. Let's see. Jay says, these players they just picked up are former first and second round picks that has potential. Yeah. Like people are looking at like, oh, when they, I said like, oh, yo, the guys that they picked up are not just like space fillers or gap fillers. These are guys that can play. So I think it's a good thing that they're doing this and doing it like this, and they're bringing guys in that they can plug in immediately, and they're actually doing it, like I said, with Howie, with opening up some space in that salary cap to do so. I knew that, like I said, I knew going in that with 19 free agents and the success that the team had, that a lot of those guys were not going to be coming back. What you do in that situation, in my opinion, is you go after the guys that you really think you want. You try to get them up front, and then you go through market values for whatever's left over, and if you can bring guys back, you can. Some guys are going to just go and take the money because of the season that they had anyway, and some of them rightfully deserve the money. So I'm not disappointed or disturbed about these guys leaving. I understood what went on and what transpired, because it was like record time for us where the Eagles come off a Super Bowl run, Super Bowl loss ultimately, but they lose both coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinator, within a week. Probably less than a week after the Super Bowl, both of those guys were gone. So they had a lot on their plate for this offseason, the Eagles did, to fill. And I think Howie did a pretty decent job, and I don't think he's done. Okay, looking at some of the mock drafts, this one I got here is from SB Nation. At number 10, Jalen Carter, defensive lineman out of Georgia. With number 30, DeJuan Jones, another offensive lineman, or offensive tackle to be exact, out of Ohio State. With number 62, you get Sidney Brown, safety from Illinois. Pick number 94, Tajay Spears, a running back from Tulane. 221, D. Winters, a linebacker out of TCU. 250, Trey Tucker, wide receiver from Tennessee. Also, folks, if you have not heard, there has been some rumor talk of interest on both sides between the Eagles and Devin White. If we can make that happen, that would be great. Also, the second one, next mock draft I saw, this one is incorporated with the trade with the Raiders. First pick at 10, they take Christian Gonzalez, cornerback of Oregon. Then at 30, they take Brian Breesy, defensive tackle out of Clemson. Then there's a trade with the Raiders. The Raiders get that second-round pick, number 62 overall. The Eagles, make sure you're sitting down when you listen to this. The Eagles, in turn, would get round 3, pick number 70. Round 4, 109. Round 5, 174. Round 6, 214. And then the rest of the draft would go like this. The 2 picks in round 3. Deion Henley, linebacker from Washington State. Jordan Battle, safety from Alabama. Round 4, Tank Dell, a wide receiver from Houston. Round 5, Isaiah McGuire, defensive end out of Missouri. Round 6, 2 picks. Jackson Kirkland, offensive tackle from Washington. And at 219, Brenton Strange, tight end from Penn State. And then round 7, Max Dugan, quarterback TCU. Listen, it is what it is. You know, that trade, if that trade happens, like you get one pick, give up one pick, and you end up getting back into the 6th round with 2 picks, yeah, how we could do something like that. I could see how we possibly picking up something like that. Final mock draft that I saw with just the Eagles' original picks. At number 10 in the 1st round, Miles Murphy, defensive lineman from Clemson. Number 30, Jahmyr Gibbs, a running back from Bama. 62, Josh Downs, a wide receiver from North Carolina. At 94, Ronnie Hickman, a safety from Ohio State. Avery Young, D-back from Rutgers at 219, and at 249, Rashawn Johnson, running back out of Texas. They also looked at Bijan out of Texas, the running back out of Texas as well, who was in town for a pre-draft visit just last week. Lastly, I saw something else, and as we talked about the free agency and the things that we liked at how he has done over the past couple years, saw something I thought just was pretty neat. So 2023 NFL free agency. These are 5 worst signings, including a former Super Bowl QB. So here we go. Linebacker for the Chargers, Eric Kendricks was signed. His contract is 2 years, $13.5 million, 6.75 guaranteed. He saved the Vikings $9.5 million on his release. You know, these are some crazy deals. For the Broncos, you got Zach Allen, defensive end, signed a 3-year, $45.7 million contract, $32.5 guaranteed. Vikings, tight end Josh Oliver, 3 years, $21 million, $8.2 guaranteed. Andre Dillard, left tackle, 3 years, $29 million, $10 million guaranteed. Jimmy G to the Raiders, 3 years, $72.8, $45 guaranteed. That one was the number 1 overall signing. I think that was too much for Jimmy G. I'm still not sold on Jimmy G. Haven't been sold on him for a long time. And, you know, the Raiders, you get rid of Derek Carr and you bring in Jimmy G. Hope that works out for you. You know, I hope y'all saw some things, or I guess y'all saw some things that y'all liked or whatever, but it is what it is. You know, it's your battle now, not ours. Getting back to it, it's been a pretty good offseason. Like I said, we got the draft coming up next month. It's coming up. It's close. It's quickly approaching us. And I think we'll do good. I think the Eagles will possibly make a trade somewhere in the draft and either move down or move up somewhere in those second half of those picks. Maybe even in that 1st round pick, they might try to move down to get somebody that they really want. So again, like I said, we'll keep our eye on it and see what happens, and I'll definitely give you all the reports that I get when I get them. And before we close out, listen, again, Sixers tonight. Shout outs to Dawn Staley also for advancing to the women's Final Four. Or she's in the Elite. They played tonight. I'll give you that schedule tonight. They played tonight to advance, and I don't see any issue with them advancing. I'm looking at a repeat for Dawn Staley in the South Carolina female Lady Gamecocks, if you will. Another championship for them down there in South Kakalaka. So, as always, folks, you know where I am. But before I go, again, like I mentioned last week, and I'll probably be mentioning every so often on social media, and when I'm back here at you, SportsRap is available for hosting. I also have slots for advertising. You can get your chance to sit in one of these seats with me, and we can talk about your business, talk about what you do, promote yourself. Promotion will be at a cost, and I can give you all the information. DM me at SportsRap CEO on Instagram, or message me SportsRap Podcast LLC on Facebook. You can also send me an email, sportsrap@yahoo.com. for all the information that you need. And again, we can help each other. We can work together. We can start a business partnership. Again, like I said, I'm available for hosting, for events and whatnot. I'm also here for your advertising needs. If you are a sports business, trainer, athlete, or you just have a small business, African-American owned small business, and you want to get some advertising done, hit your boy up because I can help you out in that part and we can talk some business. Again, folks, you know where to find me each and every Monday right here on Heat 100 Radio, heat100radio.com. You can also get us, like I say, on the TuneIn app, Heat 100 Radio. You can catch me Instagram and Twitter at SportsRap CEO. Facebook, SportsRap Podcast LLC is the group page. Just told you the web page, SportsRap. SportsRap at yahoo.com is the email. Web page, SportsRapRadio.com, and YouTube, SportsRap TV. Get over there and check all of that out. Be great on purpose. Enjoy this beautiful Sunday. It's going to be 60 degrees or so. So get out and enjoy some of this liquid sunshine, or some of this great sunshine. I'm going to say liquid sunshine. I don't want to jinx it and put no rain on it. But enjoy some of this sunshine. Enjoy some of this nice day. Schedules for tonight in the NBA. We got the Bucks and the Pistons, the Mavs and the Pacers, Rockets, Knicks, Suns, Jazz, Sixers, Nuggets, Pelicans, Blazers, T-Wolves, Kings, Bulls, Clippers. In the NHL, you have the Canadiens and the Sabres, the Panthers and the Senators, the Devils and the Islanders, the Kraken and the Wild, the Avalanche and the Ducks, the Oilers and the Coyotes. In Major League Baseball, getting ready for the season to begin in a short time, the Cardinals and the Orioles, the Pirates and the Twins, the Rays and the Yankees, Red Sox, Braves, Phillies, Blue Jays, Padres, Mariners, White Sox, Cubs, Rockies, Brewers, Royals, Rangers, Dodgers, Angels, Guardians, D-backs, and closing out the MLB schedule, the A's and the Giants. Men's Final Four will be played on April the 1st. Florida Atlantic versus San Diego State, and Miami versus UConn. Tonight, for the last two spots in the women's Final Four, you got South Carolina facing off against Maryland, and Virginia facing off against Ohio State to go up against Iowa and LSU in the women's Final Four. Again, folks, thanks for tuning in, everybody that tuned in. I appreciate all the support, as always, on Instagram and on Facebook. Listen, you can get this audio within the next couple of days. You know what I do. I doctor some things up and get it out so you can get it on Spreaker, iHeart, Anchor, Apple and Google Podcasts, on most of your podcast outlets. And also the video will go up on YouTube probably like Wednesday or Thursday once I do that as well. Thanks again for tuning in, folks. Again, like I always say, be great on purpose. And I will see you all on social media all week and right back here next week in studio. Peace.